All right, hi guys. This is a video that I'm doing kind of in reaction to all the news going on with YouTube and the censorship and the ad block and all of that other stuff, the AdSense and the ad apocalypse, which was never really an issue with me in terms of monetization. I don't have that large of a following anyway. And now it's getting to the area of actual censorship. I think it's a sad day um, because I've probably, like many of you, used YouTube for the past, 12 years since it launched and became a major success. And I don't even use a lot of other entertainment sources anymore, not even for music. And it's a tragedy that goes beyond YouTube, and I think that we're going to overcome it because those of us that are going to be affected by it, we're going to find a new place to pick up where we left off. We've come to a point where this country has enough people that are prepared to work in order to create a free media where I don't think that YouTube can really stop it. And it's not their intention to stop it. I understand that they've been pressured by organizations and sponsors that they depend on, and this is the natural result of pressure from outside sources. And I obviously don't think that it's fair, but this is a corporation. We don't own YouTube, or at least even if you're a shareholder, this isn't even up to the shareholders. This is up to the people that are managing YouTube. By the way, Samuel Adams beer, not really that much of a fan, but I got like a free case, so I'm going through it. I think I have 2 left. So, not gonna get flagged for drinking on camera, but I'm up late today. I had a nap a few hours ago. Just got home and like fell right asleep, so I'm not ready to go back to bed. And I thought I'd talk to you a little about this issue, which is to me very disturbing. And the most disturbing aspect is the involvement of an organization that is clearly eroding my confidence in my own community and its own commitment to freedom. And I think that those of us in the community, and I'm going to speak more clearly to them in the future, that they claim to share those values, they have to get moving and really start resisting and not hashtag resisting, like actually doing concrete actions in terms of getting the word out and showing the flag and talking about who we are and what we believe in. We are Jewish people who, instead of talking all the time about wedge issues that divide us from the rest of the population, and how this is all about victimization and that there's hate speech or whatever. There's always going to be hate speech. There's been hate speech since long before the internet. And those that think that the internet has amplified it don't understand the way it works. So what? It's a new way to communicate. But when Henry Ford started publicizing the protocols of the Elders of Zion, basically distributing them for free with his cars, we did not shut down Ford Motor Company. Unfortunately, people are going to make statements that are very defamatory towards us, and it's not something that we can really squelch. Now, if you're trying to say, oh, I'm justifying anti-Jewish or anti-Black or anti-Asian, whatever it is, speech, I'm not justifying anything. I'm saying it's a fact of life. People are going to say things that are defamatory towards you. And those of you that think that by squelching it through regulations, you are going to get a real victory in the in the fight in civilizations in terms of you know, actually making an impact on society, I think you're wrong. Now those are people say, well, this is what they should have done to stop Hitler. You don't realize that Hitler was in prison for a few years. It helped, basically it gave his movement a boost because suddenly they had this man to rally around that was in prison, and the weak-kneed government eventually released him. Now, if he would have never gone to prison, that's a good question. Would he have been such a success? I still think that it would have been a risk to leave him free, but clearly they did try to suppress him during his you know, pre-Munich days, or no, those were his Munich days, the Munich Putsch. And this might be, you know, a hard analogy to use, but this is a question of, if a society is truly healthy, it will not have the polarization that it does today. Now, obviously, I'm somebody who falls very strongly on the capitalist side. I believe that, which I am fully engaged in telling people, the capitalist side has nothing to do with race or Nazism. It has to do with economics and what we believe is the best way for people to succeed. There's a lot of people that I've met. They haven't been on my channel yet, but they are white nationalists that believe in a lot of socialist ideas. Richard Spencer believes in universal health care. So therefore, it would behoove YouTube to censor socialist programs more than it would be to censor programs like mine, because, or, you know, channels like mine, because my philosophy differs so much from that of these actual racists that you're not really censoring anything that's sensitive to people. I think that all people would succeed better under a system that enables them to compete with each other fairly, without putting in all of these price fixes and little fudge factors like affirmative action and targeted immigration programs and whatever. That those things, and you know, those things, if a government decides to engage in them, then that's their decision. But I think that they're a bad idea, and that's me. But more about the ADL, they are an organization that has pretty much leached off of the community that they claim to support without actually returning anything in terms of benefits and support. They have been unusually weak in their condemnation of the Sarcer movement, the Women's March and whatever, because, to be honest with you, they support the same political cronies that she does, that Linda Sarcer does. They're pretty much two different. They're contending for the same audience, and rather than rock the boat within the progressive community, the ADL, or the A&ADL, as I call them, the Aiding and Abetting Defamation League, would rather continue to throw mud at people that have nothing to do with Jews or anti-Semitism or racism or whatever. The whole thing where they were just smearing Gavin McInnes and Milo is just despicable. Those are people that are the exact opposite of everything that they're claiming that they are. I published an op-ed about a week and a half ago, Times of Israel, for those of you that are interested. And I said plain and simple that this type of censorship and thought policing and speech policing is the opposite of our interests as a community and as a country as a whole, as Americans. It doesn't go. There's a lot of this attitude that we have to do what we can to prevent a hostile society from developing around us. is this not developing a hostile society? You cannot police speech. And the analogy that I think is most apropos, fuck Hitler. That's not the one that I think is really the issue. Hitler is always the one that they run to, because then you can really make it the case that it's a negative trend that's going on. Oh, we have to prevent this because it's kind of like what Hitler did. That's exactly, so you're going to take the most extreme case of why to censor. Why don't you think about cases where they did try to censor and it failed? Okay, and you can bring in issues of extremism. Sure, there's the Skokie trial. What was it, 1978, where these neo-Nazis wanted to demonstrate in a park, Illinois. These residents said, no, we're not going to have them, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Nazis. Why? Because the law is very clear on this. This is a public assembly. Kind of having some connectivity issue here. Let's see if this works. I think we're still here. Anyway, yeah. This computer is really driving me nuts, guys. But this issue with the all we have to do is tell people to shut up and kick them off the air, and everything will be fine. No, that's never worked ever. It didn't work. I mean, it's worked in isolated cases where you're talking about very narrow niche markets. There was, I think, Charles Coughlin in the 30s. Apparently, he was kicked off the air, but that's one person. And actually, I believe that it was only after a long time that he was kicked off the air, and it didn't really reduce any of his support. What eventually reduced his support was that the economy did recover. However, you could go to the rock and roll era, which has nothing to do with Jews, but except for, yeah, I mean, not in the same sense that there were Jews that were involved, but rock and roll in the 1950s, the white establishment in the music industry, the radio industry, the TV industry, Ed Sullivan, they were trying to censor who would appear on TV and what the popular music would be. And it was this concerted effort on the part of some of these establishment characters to say, this is degenerate music. It's going to corrupt our youth. This is the devil's music. That's what they were trying to get at. And did it work? No, because the children that were they were growing up at the time, they saw this taboo music as something amazing. It's the same thing. It happened over and over again throughout the years. I remember in the 90s, they were telling us not to listen to Marilyn Manson and Korn and The Offspring or any of those bands that were more cutting edge. They were telling us not to listen to gangster rap. They were saying that this is music that erodes our values, which you can make the case that it does, but by censoring it, by calling this Tipper Gore, what was it, Parent Media Research Council, I think it was called, PMRC. She tried to create this council that would judge which music is degenerate and which didn't. It backfired. All of those acts became rousing successes. Tipper Gore was not a success. She's been a failure at every level. And it's the same thing with the ADL. The ADL is trying to tell you, we will tell you what is hateful and what isn't. Look, there are things that are hateful on the internet, but the fact is that people are still going to hate. That's the, if you go to the interview, if you remember that classic music from movie from 3 years ago, haters gonna hate and ain'ters gonna ain't. And the ADL ain't doing nothing to help anybody. This is an organization that is completely conflating their role in protecting a community. They've actually abandoned that job. They don't do anything for anybody that I know. and I know people all around here that if people need help in terms of jobs or in terms of psychiatric help, there's mental health issues, they don't go to the ADL. The ADL is a fraud organization now. It used to be useful. It used to be good at monitoring actual hate organizations that would that were organizing to actually commit acts of violence. But nowadays they simply have warped their mission and turned it into some sort of crusade against people that don't agree with them. And what are their principles now? Their principles have nothing to do with fostering more communication between the communities. It has nothing. Do they go and talk to the Catholic Church anymore? I remember they used to do it. Do they go and speak to people from all walks of life? I don't see the ADL actually engaging in just helping people throughout the communities, giving positive information. They are basically our version of CAIR, the CAIR, Council of American Islamic Relations, and it's horrible. I mean, I think CAIR is also an awful organization for other reasons. I think the SPLC once was a very useful organization. They would when the South was completely overrun with a number of groups that would commit acts against black people in the South. It used to be a useful organization. What happened that these organizations that used to deal with helping people in their own community deal with discrimination or whatever, suddenly they've become these people that are arbiters of what is acceptable and unacceptable speech. And it's past time for people of all communities to say we can say whatever we want as long as it's not threatening people and advocating for violence and things that are illegal. That because this is the terms of service of YouTube, but you cannot come to us and tell us we are not allowed to talk about things like climate change being wrong, or about abortion being immoral, or about if you have issues with the transgender lifestyle. This is not hate speech. This is people expressing their own personal opinions. And the day that we allow this type of policing to occur is the day that we suddenly we're going to see our music get censored again. We're going to see acts that we find amusing or hilarious, or comedians that once used to they used to speak out for freedom of speech. Now you have some of these people that they're against freedom of speech. Jim Jeffries was this hilarious guy. 2 or 3 years ago, he was putting on acts that were so edgy and so offensive and tasteless that sometimes you wonder, like, I mean, it was the most NSFW shit that you could ever see. And yet now he's going around, he's a very anti-Trump comedian, and he's basically judging people based on their opinions. This guy has the most offensive opinions that there ever were. Talking about taking his, I think he had a friend who had MS and taking him to whores or whatever. That was that was the funniest bit that he did. And it's extremely offensive to people on so many levels. So now you're going to have these comedians go on Bill Maher and try to say, fuck you, he's a Nazi, whatever. And this is, now they're making it about Donald Trump. But think about it this way: even if you do not support Donald Trump, well, do you think that they're going to stop with censoring one person, the President of the United States? Once they can censor the President of the United States, then they will try to censor. What stops them from censoring other people? What stops them from picking people randomly and saying, you can't express that about your place of business, or else you're never going to get hired again. This is an endless cycle of just people trying to control each other. So I think I'm going to start organizing among people that I know to counteract the ADL and try to take people's voice back to themselves. And I'm not trying to form a new organization, because if that were the case, what did having an organization gain us? We don't even have it. I'm not a member of any of these organizations. Do they send me these programs to approve? I remember, I'm not going to say who it is because they won't want me to, but I know somebody in the union. They used to say, yeah, we're all supporting, and this was in 2008, we're supporting Hillary Clinton for president. And I said, that's very interesting. When did you decide that? He's like, oh, yeah, they decided it back in, I think it was February. I said, what do you mean they decided it? They decided it, or you decided it? When did they ask you? He said, well, what do you mean, when did they ask me? They decided it. They sent a bulletin to us. And, now we're supporting Hillary Clinton and I'm campaigning for her. I said, so you are part of an organization that took it upon themselves to support a candidate, which you do support, but they never asked you. And you're trying to say that this is democracy, that this is freedom of expression. You're basically a tool of somebody else. Well, they kind of ignored what I said. And then 8 years later, the same union did the same thing. And those interests, the people that are making those decisions without your consent, do you think that they're really acting in your interests? Because if they don't have to ask you, and they don't have to tell you, and they don't have to give you account of what they're doing, then why would they even care what your interests are? I mean, clearly you have a disparity in terms of accountability. You have to pay your dues to them. In his case, I don't pay to the ADL because I'm not a member. I don't even know if there is membership. But by association now, people that have nothing to do with this ridiculous organization, they are being lumped in with a group that is lumping other people together. They did this ridiculous, idiotic guide to the alt-right and the alt-light, where they made a thin distinction between the two. And they just start smearing guys like Mike Cernovich and McInnes and Milo and whatever. They start associating them with Nazi people and whatever. This is pure defamation. This is the aiding and abetting defamation league. And I have this here, and I'm gonna leave soon because how much of this crap can we really talk about? Where YouTube, on their own blog, on the Google blog, they said, an update on our commitment to fight terror content online. A little over a month ago, we told you about the 4 new steps we're taking to combat terrorist content on YouTube. Better detection and faster removal driven by machine learning. More experts to alert us to content that needs review. Tougher standards for videos that are controversial but do not violate our policies, and more work in the counterterrorism space. So they've already said that they're going to remove videos that do not violate their terms of service. That is ridiculous. Okay, if you want terrorism to be off of your channels, off of your site, then you should make it part of your terms of service. What the hell is stopping you? You have your own legal team. I'm sure Google is large enough to have a legal department. They can add all those rules to their terms of service. Everybody, a lot of people don't read the terms of service, but it doesn't matter because people have to agree to them. It says here, more experts. Let me see if I can share my screen. I hope you guys don't have to leave because here we go. I'm sharing it right now, and then we'll be done. Yeah, you should be able to see it now. Presented. Here we go. It says more experts. Of course, our systems are only as good as the data they're based on. Over the past weeks, we have begun working with more than 15 additional expert NGOs and institutions through our Trusted Flagger program, including the Anti-Defamation League, the No Hate Speech Movement, and the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. These organizations bring expert knowledge of complex issues like hate speech, radicalization, and terrorism that will help us better identify content that is being used to radicalize and recruit extremists. Notice they said extremists. Now, they didn't say what type of extremists. Maybe they should be a little more specific. We will also regularly consult these experts as we update our policies to reflect new trends. That's even worse news. And we'll continue to add more organizations to our network of advisors over time. So here, I'm going to stop sharing. So I want you guys to ask yourselves this. This could be the beginning of something even worse, because why stop at the ADL? The ADL is, or the double ADL as I call them, the aiding and abetting defamation league. They are such a shitty organization as it is. And then you could add the SPLC. They are, in my opinion, worse than the ADL, and that's saying a lot. And you know, I don't even know how to gauge which one is worse or which one is better. It's kind of a matter of taste. I think the SPLC, because of their decision to slander Majid Nawaz, who is an important anti-jihad activist over in England, who has taken a lot. You know, you can say what you want, you can disagree with him. I disagree with him on a lot of topics, like the European Union. But he's taken a massive personal risk by, you know, voicing his opinions about what's going on with Islam. They have called him an anti-Muslim bigot, an anti-Muslim activist. Does that seem fair to you? And are they going to be associated with this? Because it seems to me that they could be in the mix for this. I mean, I can't say for certain, and I don't want to be caught on record saying that they are, but they are the type of organization that they're talking about. You can see the NAACP being involved. I mean, how trust these organizations are all Obamacrat puppet organizations. And those of you that think that I'm exaggerating, you have to check who the donors are for these organizations and who's on their board of directors, who are their executives and whatever. The double ADL, I know, Jonathan Greenblatt is a former Obamacrat. I mean, I can look up real quick the SPLC, but you have to really start to question what's going on with these sites. Are they becoming partisan sites? These here it is. You got Morris Dees. I mean, he was a national finance chairman for Ted Kennedy in the 1980 presidential election. Morris Dees, this guy was the head of the SPLC. And the current guys are also bad. You have CARE. Hold on. They're headed by Nihad Awad. If he gets involved in this would be even worse, because this guy has been indicted for or unindicted. Sorry. So he's been an unindicted co-conspirator in terrorism cases. You know, this organization, all these organizations are frauds. We do not need, and I see here there's a picture of him with George Bush. And it's like right after 9/11. And these people are basically frauds. They don't care about fighting terrorism. They don't care about, if anything, terrorism is good for their business, because then it gives them reason to come out in the public and say, you know, that they'll issue a press release, they'll go to a press conference, they'll say, you know, hashtag not all, you know, pray for Orlando, pray for Paris, whatever it is. What have they done? Let me ask you this, and I can't see the chat here, so you can forgive me, guys, if because I see there's a couple of you on here. What have they actually done in order to really combat terrorism? I don't think that they've done a single thing. They've basically behaved like, you know, the mouthpiece of the establishment in both parties. It's very sad. I think that YouTube can do better here. I'll see if there's any comments here. I muted my. I see. I see somebody that I know here. No, no, Shane, I can't give it. I'll give you, geez, shout out to your website, and then I'll get flagged by Citizen Shane. If you don't know, here's what I'll do. Shane, I'll put a link to our video, from a couple weeks ago. And if that's not enough for you, I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm not going to link to your website after, but I'll tell you what, it's because of organizations like the ADL that I think that there's a lot of people that feel the way that Citizen Shane does. And, he can comment. I think he's probably commenting right now, whether he agrees. But we have a real issue where these, geez, it's distracting to see myself on two different screens. But the ADL is creating a lot of this resentment needlessly. We're seeing a definite rise in people that believe in theories that are racially divisive or racially separatist, whatever you want to call it, because they don't feel secure in their own identities. Why is that? Because of the you retracted a message, Citizen Shane. That's kind of uncharacteristic of you. I shouldn't have gone and looked at the chat. I should have just ignored you, man. But then you would have posted like a reaction video or something. But in any case, I can't stay on this the whole night. But there's an issue here where people, if we're really promoting a tolerant society where people can be who they want to be, then you can't defame just one side. You can't defame. I mean, if it was just going to be when they were doing all those campaigns against the Catholic Church, how it's all pedophiles. Hold on, I'll get to your question, Shane. I think there are a couple other viewers, but you're like dominating the chat. But yeah, there's an issue here where 10 or 15 years ago, and I think this does go to your question, there was all this stuff about how the Catholic Church is a corrupt organization, that they protect criminals and whatever, and yet nobody made an issue of it. There were no death threats. None of these journalists were censored from any type of media. And then there was the Scientology issue. Now, Scientology did react in the legal sphere. They were trying to silence a lot of this criticism against them. But in the end, a lot of these movies ended up getting published. Nobody's called for, in broader society, censoring criticism of Scientology. There is some criticism of Judaism. I wouldn't say that it's as bad as the criticism of Christianity in the public sphere. And what he's talking about in the chat, for those that are in the chat, is that this criticism of Islam that Peterson is talking about, Robert Spencer. I know that Shane probably knows of Richard Spencer. No, it's a different guy. Robert Spencer. Thanks for the comment, Shane. I'd like to think that there's a lot of honest ones like us, but maybe they're being suppressed by YouTube. But in any in any case, there's a huge issue where Robert Spencer. This is a guy you should Google him and YouTube and find him on YouTube while you still can. This is a real scholar of religion, an amazing mind. He's an Arabic scholar. He's gone and analyzed it, and he's published his views on Islam and why it's. Yes, I know. My doctor was one too. You're distracting me, man. Take a rest. Why don't you have like like a piece of I was about to say something, but go have like a cappuccino or something over by the corner. You can take your phone and listen to the podcast on the way there. You seem like a little edgy tonight. You need opiates. You might want to get get moving on that while the market is still viable. So, oh, are you having insomnia tonight? He's gonna answer me. This is so distracting. This guy, he contacted me yesterday, but I'm not sure what he needed. Do you have insomnia, Shane? Anyway, while he's deciding, when am I not? Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna close in about 2 minutes. That's it. As hilarious as this is, I don't have a blessing for sleep. I forget. There's a blessing for health. It's called the refuah shlema. So you should have a refuah shlema, that you should have good health. but what I was going to say, Robert Spencer, for example, is one of these scholars. I'm going to minimize the chat here, so I can't see you, Shane. So you can give a little rest on the commenting. The Robert Spencer, he has a number of books. I think he just published one that is The Infidel's Guide to Free Speech. And you know, I'm somebody, I believe in the freedom of religion. So I'm not coming here to say this is what I believe. I'm trying to say that this is a person, he has a very, very deep understanding of the topic. He's not trying to slander people. He's not trying to tell you to kill anybody. He's not trying to tell you to hate anybody. But he's trying to talk about ideas that he finds to be disturbing and to be caustic to our civilization. Now, can you say that his views are hateful? Yes, but you still have to make the case against it. And I think that creators like that, I don't think he's necessarily a creator, but he is somebody who goes on and, you know, he'll have a speech feature and somebody will feature his speech and whatever, and he's under death threats all the time, by the way. Peterson as well. Those guys, if we allow this this stuff to go on with the ADL, you know, supporting the censorship, then it's a sad day for everybody of all religious groups, of all races and ethnic groups, because then we kind of are having to police our interactions with each other. You know, I obviously I don't agree with many of the things Shane has said, but we have a dialogue here. It's currently minimized in the browser screen, so I can't even see it. However, we have a dialogue here where we can exchange thoughts and ideas, which may have, you know, in past generations, it could have minimized some of these horrific things that have happened between people. So everybody have a great night. I'm sorry that this is happening. I don't know if it's going to affect my channel, but I know a lot of creators that I personally find amazing, like Andy Worski, are afraid of it. You know, there's the Some Black Eye channel that they know that this could be the meteor that kills all the dinosaurs, and they might have to migrate over. So I think that you and we should all, you know, kind of put together some programs how to, you know, encourage better dialogue among, you know, YouTube creators and against censorship. You know, there's back in the 80s, there was the Rock Against Racism movement, and there was the Rock Against Communism by the racist skinhead rockers. There's always a reaction and a counter reaction. That's the way society works, and we can't just expect everything that happens in society to be something that's comfortable for us. With that, I'll close. Feel free to comment below. No, I'm not part of the Illuminati. For those of you that have probably been asking, if I was part of the Illuminati, I probably would have been part of writing that policy. You know, everybody have a great night, and you know, we'll speak to you next time.